before I get into the actual match, I'd like to speak a little bit about Shane McMahon as a wrestler. Despite the stunts that he's done in the past, he has never been portrayed as a serious wrestler, as a trained wrestler, as a competitor that can compete with other wrestlers. He's always been known as someone who takes these high risks, and that's why people like to see him. Um, so now in 2016, it's even worse because he's older, but now he's facing The Undertaker at WrestleMania inside Hell in a Cell. And the storyline leading up to it really doesn't make any sense. Shane is blackmailing Vince, but yet Vince is naming the stipulation, and if Shane wins, then he gets what he wants. That's not really how blackmail works. We never find out what's in the lockbox, etc., etc. But ignoring all of that, I'd like to focus on just the match itself. In my mind, the only way that this match could have worked was if Shane McMahon was a mega heel who people absolutely hated, and they would have paid anything to see him get beaten up. And the match would have worked if it was reminiscent of Undertaker versus Vince McMahon at Survivor Series in 2003, where even though Vince technically won because of interference, Vince just got beaten up. He had no offense. He was busted open from the very first punch. And if Shane McMahon could generate some sort of nuclear heat in order to make people want to pay anything to see Taker get his hands on him, beat him around the cell, etc., etc., then the match could have worked. But the way that it was presented as Shane McMahon as this almost a babyface, really, and Taker, he wasn't a heel, but he wasn't really a babyface either. He was kind of like Mr. McMahon's, well, he said he wasn't Mr. McMahon's instrument of destruction, but essentially he did what he was supposed to do. So, you know, but, I mean, the point is that Shane really should not have had a chance against Undertaker, especially at WrestleMania, especially inside Hell in a Cell. And so in my mind, any offense that Shane got during that match, unless it was a lucky shot, like a lucky punch, etc., it was a joke. I mean, you have Shane McMahon applying a half Boston Crab to The Undertaker, who is screaming in pain. You know, I just don't buy it. It's a joke. We all knew the stunt was going to happen, and so anything that happens before that was meaningless. All the near falls, etc. And the match was just, you know, really ill-advised in my mind. But so let's just skip to the stunt. Shane McMahon is on the top of the cell, and everyone knows what he's thinking. We all know that Taker's gonna move because he has never hit that elbow drop. Everyone always moves. So Shane jumps, and admittedly, it was pretty impressive. It was very impressive. I mean, that was a much higher cell than when Mankind fell off it. Granted, the table was more prepared, for lack of a better term, for someone falling onto it. But so Shane jumps, and Taker moves out of the way, and Shane just collapses onto the table, falling so many feet. It was an impressive sight. Taker sells it really well. He looks back at the table, and his eyes are wide open, and he has this expression that says, "I came this close to dying." And I can't believe that guy actually did that. And he kind of has this really good expression on his face that really sells it. Shane McMahon is out, supposedly. But then Taker starts to grab him, and then Shane McMahon does the bring it taunt. He brings his two hands up, and he looks at Taker, and he says, bring it. Eh, you know, and Mick Foley in 1998 fell off, was a legitimate wrestler who had, an actual legitimacy to him, um, was actually knocked out and was carried out of the arena almost before he got back up. But yet we have Shane McMahon who jumped on off an even higher cell, saying "Bring it to the Undertaker." That's a joke. Okay, I mean that should have never happened. Shane should not have been able to move. He should have been completely out at that point. But so the match continues. Taker brings him into the mat, or into the cell, into the ring, and tombstones him for the victory, of course, which is fine, which is what we expected. And then Shane McMahon gets carted off, which is what you would expect after a match like that, and after a stunt like that. And then he does the thumbs up on his way out as he's being carted away to let the crowd know that he's okay. And, it's not as if he's someone who twisted his ankle or, pulled a muscle or, tore his quadricep. That's happened a few times in wrestling, as we all know. Shane at that point should have been unconscious, or if he was conscious, shouldn't have been able to move, much less put his thumbs up. And it's not, I realize that he's not jumping up and down saying that he's okay, but he really should have been either unconscious or unable to move, and it really does destroy your suspension of disbelief while you're watching it. And Shane doing that really kind of, in my mind, diminishes what he did, jumping off the cell. I mean, it was a very impressive sight, like I said, but he just kind of ruins it by basically saying to the world that he's okay. And, it just doesn't work for me. I didn't buy it. It took me out of the moment. So in summary, my main three problems are: number one, Shane should not have gotten that much offense in. Number two, Shane should not have done the bring it taunt after jumping off the cell. And number three, he should not have done the thumbs up as he was being carted out of the arena. So those are my thoughts on the match. I'd love to know what you thought, so let me know in the comments below.